the Democratic Republic of Sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
Was the better team.
Is that better? I forgot.
There you go.
See, usually we have a fat guy in this chair. There's usually a fat guy that does this, and I keep looking at the wrong camera. I'm not used to looking this way.
Right, I hear
see
you.
the screen's over here. Now I understand why he says it's such a pain in the ass. Can you hear me now? Let's try that one more time. Baylor Bears 86-70 over Gonzaga last night in the national title game. Hey, Brian, say the same shit you just said all over again.
No problem. Listen, I thought that I haven't seen a team come out so flat in a long time. First and foremost, Baylor just kicked the crap out of Gonzaga. Plain and simple. The narrative that they played their hearts out against UCLA, I don't want to really hear it that much. You know, Jalen Suggs getting a couple fouls early hurts. Baylor going 5 for 5 and three-pointers early hurts. But it just seemed like Baylor wanted the game more. I couldn't see anything. Drew Timme was outmatched, outplayed, outmuscled. He looked like he played so small, and I don't think he gets drafted in the NBA after last night's game.
I would agree with you. Well, I don't know that I've ever seen a player that I thought one thing about completely alter that. He was a liability. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was an absolute liability on the floor. Baylor beat them senseless down low, out-rebounded them 14-4, I think was the offensive rebounding margin. I've never seen anything like it. Gonzaga's the more talented team. Right. I don't think that's even debatable. But what you saw last night is what happens when a team completely buys in. The offensive sets were better. The defense was better. Mark Few looked out of sorts. It looked like the only solution he had was just to hand it to Jalen Suggs and hope for the best. And that's what it looked like for 40 minutes last night.
Right.
If Jalen Suggs can't do it, nobody else can do it.
There was a few things that I took from that, too. There was bringing it down to 10 right before the first half. I thought, hey, here we go. Gonzaga's going to come out of the second half. They're going to insert their, get in there and they're going to win this game. I felt like Mark Few going to the zone in the beginning of the second half was a huge mistake. Baylor is not the team you play zone for against. They have shooters everywhere.
Well, they shot damn near 44% from three-point range.
Yeah, I mean, this
is elementary shit.
Yeah.
And Mark Few couldn't figure it out.
No.
He had nothing. He had 7 guys, and when the starting lineup, that didn't work, Suggs picks up the 2 fouls, and he had nowhere to go.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I really felt like Chichua and Thamba basically owned Timme, and it threw him off their game. There was, in the first half, 3 out of 5 possessions, Timme just turned the ball over. He was getting out-muscled. They were just taken out of his hands. It got him out of their rhythm of the offense, and it was just tough to come back from. Any time that they would make any sort of run, even in the second half when they got it under 10, they got it down to 9. Boom, Baylor hits 2 3-pointers right in a row. Butler shoots from 35 feet out. They were just killing them. All it was. I thought when the big men got in foul trouble, hey, here we go. Maybe they're going to do this. But Beadle had, 8 offensive rebounds and 11 offensive rebounds. He didn't even play that many minutes. I just felt like they inserted their will on him, and it was just over.
So now we have to do the thing that we have to do the day after every national title game and overreact to what this means in the long haul. I think you have to start talking about Mark Few now. Now been to 2 national title games, lost both. We were talking yesterday, this might be the best college basketball team that's ever existed. And you came out and got just shellacked by Baylor. This was never close.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever really think Gonzaga had a shot to win this game?
The only time I felt that way is when they got it to 10 at the first half. I thought they would come out with a little bit more intensity in the second half, and I just never saw it. Again, I'm going to go back to that narrative about them coming out and playing so hard against UCLA. Listen, these are 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids. If you don't get up for a national championship game, you are doing it wrong, and you should not even be there, period.
And for me, I don't necessarily think they didn't get up for the game. I don't think they were prepared for what they were going to face.
Yeah.
Baylor just swarmed them. I mean, this was a level of defensive intensity that you don't see in college basketball anymore. This was early 90s Arkansas kind of shit.
Right.
This was Bob Huggins at West Virginia kind of shit. You just don't see that from teams that are this offensively efficient. It was an absolute devastation, and Mark Few had no solutions. So now my question would be, have we overvalued Mark Few as a coach?
I still believe that Mark Few is a great coach. I still think that he has done things with that program. Listen, I know you got to win the big one. In a year like this, when you had the team from jump start that looked like the best team in the country, you got Jalen Suggs to come to play for you, which was huge. He can coach. He's got the best winning percentage in the history of NCAA basketball. Yes, he plays in the West Coast Conference. Yes, not the level of competition, but he played a strong, out-of-conference schedule to begin the season this year.
And I agree with that, but there comes a point where you can't play BYU, Loyola, Marymount, and Pepperdine for months at a time.
Right.
I understand they played good teams in the non-conference. They had absolutely no idea how to deal with adversity. That was the number one thing I noticed. As soon as this went badly, and it was, 18-6?
Yeah.
They looked like deer in headlights. They didn't know what to do. Few didn't know what to do. Few had this blank look on his face like, what is happening right now? And when you haven't had any adversity, it's like the rich kid that's never been broke in his life.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he loses his debit card and he doesn't know how to do shit.
Right.
What do you do now? I've always had a piece of plastic that just gave me money.
Yeah.
Gonzaga, that's how they felt. We always just scored points because we showed up.
Right.
We had the best player on the floor. We had the second best player on the floor in Corey Kispert. We had Timmy. We had all these pieces. And now what do? And they saw adversity and they fell apart. And I have to admit, I look at Mark Few, and this is a guy that's been at Gonzaga since 1999. He's been the head coach at Gonzaga since 1999. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I want to see how close you get.
Okay.
How many seasons, in the 22 seasons he's been at Gonzaga, has he not won 20 games?
I'm going to say 2.
It's 0. He's won 20 games in every season he's been a head coach. Another question. How many times has he lost 10 games in a year?
0.
It's 2. You got him backwards.
Backwards. There we go.
He's a phenomenal coach. I don't think there's any debating about that. I've heard this narrative of, now we have to put the microscope on Mark Few because he can't win the big games. There have been a lot of guys that couldn't win big games.
Right.
I don't think there's any doubt he's a good coach, but I will say something, and I can't believe I'm getting ready to say this. A few years ago, we had a massive conference realignment shift thing. Gonzaga's not that alluring of a program because they don't have football because they don't have a football program.
Right.
They need to be in a bigger conference.
Right. Are you possibly thinking about like Pac-12?
Pac-12 would be ideal, but they have no reason. They have no reason to want Gonzaga.
Right.
Okay, so you got a basketball program that brings in a little bit of money. You do nothing for us in football. You do nothing for us in virtually any other sport. I just don't think at this day and time, where you've got so much competition, you've got guys that want to be seen, on the spotlight, because college basketball doesn't get the spotlight that the NBA, the NFL, things like that do. We pay attention to college basketball in March.
Right.
We watch some of the non-conference games in November and December. We largely ignore it through conference season until Duke and Carolina play, and then we swoop back in for the conference tournaments and we care again. And it allows us to be kind of blinded by the fact of you didn't play a game that was within 10 points all year long.
Right.
This same shit happened to UNLV back in the early 90s.
Right.
I mean, and I look at these two teams very similarly. You're otherworldly talented. But You get to the tournament, you face adversity, and you don't know what to do with it.
Right. You go playing a tough non-conference schedule, but then you're playing Pepperdine's, BYU's, St. Mary's. These are decent basketball programs. They're not preparing you for March.
So I have an idea.
Yeah.
And you may tell me I'm crazy. You may think I'm out of my mind.
Okay.
Why don't they join the Big East? I understand geographically doesn't mean shit. If we learned anything during this pandemic, it's that geographics don't mean jack shit.
Yeah.
Because we figured out a way to do it. The Big East is the biggest basketball-centric school in the country.
Catholic schools.
In terms of league.
Yeah.
Gonzaga's a Catholic school too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that part of it makes sense.
Yep.
If you told me they were playing against the Creightons and the Villanovas and the Georgetowns of the world, I think you would see this go away. And I understand the geographic limitations. I just don't see another solution.
Right. I think that's a great idea. Again, the geographic is obviously out there.
You got West Virginia playing in the Big 12.
Right.
I mean, Jesus Christ, it's halfway across the country.
You can't say that anymore. Here, the thing is, you got to make a move. You cannot stay in the West Coast Conference if you want to grow to different levels. They have to move from the West Coast Conference, or we're going to keep seeing the same exact thing. Great Gonzaga team, make it to Elite Eight, some Final Fours, championship game, and they're going to crumble. And you said Mark Few had this look on his face in that game. I felt like the entire team had that look on his face. I felt like the only person that had any intensity about him was Jalen Suggs. And he tried his damnedest to keep playing, and I felt like he got out of rhythm when he had to sit for a couple minutes. He's not used to that kind of thing. But again, we were talking about it earlier today. He didn't pick up a single foul the rest of the game after that, those two. So it's not like he sat for an extreme extended amount of time before he got back in the game, and he played the whole rest of the game without getting a foul. It just felt like Baylor was up in their faces, and they didn't know what to do. They were up in their faces from the time they got over half court. They played with such defensive intensity that I don't think Gonzaga has seen it anywhere this year. They just outmatched, outplayed, outmuscled. They showed them how small they were, period.
And Adam Black said in the comments, it would be one thing if this was college football and you're not getting into the national title game because of your conference. They've been to two. I understand that. But then they play a team like Baylor that throws them any kind of look that they haven't seen, and they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, this is you look at how they came through the tournament. They beat Norfolk State, Oklahoma, Creighton, and who am I forgetting? Who they beat in the Elite Eight?
Gonzaga? Or is that what you're asking about? Sorry, I missed what you were saying.
I'm trying to Gonzaga.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other. None of them were like really high-end schools. And Chuck said, let's talk about who won, say who lost. We're getting there. Trust me, there will be a lot about Baylor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to get the Gonzaga thing out of the way, if I'm being really honest.
Absolutely.
You haven't played a team that's even in your talent realm since November.
Right.
And that comes into play. That 100% comes into play. That's the reason teams that play in small conferences don't win national titles.
Right. Again, you're right, Chuck. Let's talk about, Baylor side of this. Baylor was the better team yesterday, by far. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Scott Drew has done the greatest job I've ever seen resurrecting a program from the absolute death. If you guys remember correctly, he took over the job in 2003? And I believe they had, for first and foremost, he took the job leaving.
From Dave Bliss.
Yeah, take the job from Dave Bliss. Google the surrounding, controversy around that. Everybody should know what's going on there. He took the job with 2 months left before practice. Every single player on that team had transferred out because they were granted amnesty to be able to get out of there. They were on probation until 2010. They weren't even allowed to go to the tournament his first year. He took that program, and within 4 years, after 4 years, he's only had 2 seasons where he's won less than 20 games, and they were 19-18.
Yeah, here's a fun stat. Do you know how many 21 seasons they'd had since 1948 before Scott Drew got there?
I'm not even sure.
1.
Yeah.
It was 1. And I think they won 21 games. 23-11 in 1987 with Gene Iva. That's it.
Yeah.
This was the worst Power 5 job in the country, and it wasn't even debatable. And what he's talking about, you had Dave Bliss that basically covered up a murder. Patrick Denny that played for Baylor was killed by one of his teammates. They were talking about disbanding this program.
Right.
Scott Drew leaves his alma mater, taking over for his dad to take this job, which at the time was a mind-boggling decision.
Right.
Because this was a place that you went to die in college basketball. Mm-hmm. And now, this is one of the premier schools in the country.
Right.
I mean, how many programs are honestly year in, year out better than Baylor?
Not very many. And it's not just the fact he's been churning out NBA players as well. I think one of the major things that I think about Scott Drew moving into this new type of process that we're going through with the transfer portals and all that, he's always been able to get good transfers to come to that program. If you remember correctly, there's been a few transfers that have come to Baylor and have done a great job. So I think that he's doing a great job. Here's some things that I looked at. They weren't even in a tournament since 1988 before they made the tournament in 2007, I believe it was. That's incredible. That was only the 5th time in program history that they made the NCAA tournament. They won a national championship last night.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's absolutely crazy that 15 years he was able to turn an entire program around that was literally dead. Absolutely dead. There was no coming back from it. There was nothing you could possibly do. He just turned this program around in 15 years, made it an absolute powerhouse, beat one of the best teams we've possibly ever seen that we talked about. And now, where does he go from here?
I mean, to what you said, Baylor's played basketball for 115 years.
Yeah.
They've been in the tournament 12 times. 9 of them are with Scott Drew. That's otherworldly kind of stuff. I literally can't think of another job that anybody's done to resurrect a program that's to this level. I mean, Kelvin Sampson at Houston, that program was pretty dead in the water. Larry Brown turned around to SMU, but I mean, not to this level. You didn't win national titles.
No.
You didn't go 28-2 and beat arguably one of the 5 best college basketball teams we've ever seen.
Right.
And so my question for Scott Drew would be, is he going to be a Jay Wright level lifer at Baylor?
I don't know. It's kind of weird because also we were talking about this earlier. This is a little bit about what we were saying is, listen, the dynamic of college basketball is changing. The coaches are changing. We're going to talk about that when we talk about Hubert Davis being hired. But here's the thing. You're going to have, in the next couple years, you're going to have a lot of big names that have been coaching for a long time go the route that Roy Williams went. They're going to say, I'm not here to do this all the time. And there's going to be some programs that come up that are bigger names than Baylor. And I think that Scott Drew needs to be number 1 on the list for their hire. Does he take the job? I don't know.
I would say no. I think now Scott Drew is in that list with Jay Wright and a litany of others that they will be lifers where they are.
Yeah.
Because he can be.
Yeah.
Because he 100% can be.
Yeah.
They will build statues to him at Baylor. And he's not that old either.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, God, I didn't even check it. How old is Scott Drew? He's in his 50s, maybe?
Let's see. Scott Drew is 50 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
50 in October.
I mean, that's extremely.
I remembered he was one of the youngest coaches in America when he took the Valparaiso.
I mean, listen, he's been around coaching his entire life. He's been around his father. His brother played in the league for a little bit. I mean, this guy has lived, breathed basketball since he was born. This is an opportunity to take a program, if you want to, stay there, like you say, Jay Wright. I think that's a perfect example. And just build a program where you didn't think anybody could actually possibly do. And it would take, I think, the craziest amount of money to get him to go.
I don't think money would do it.
Again, I don't know if money is actually the thing. I think he's just.
I don't think money would do it.
Yeah.
If money was going to do it, there have been enough people that would have called on Scott Drew that would have pulled. First of all, Baylor has money.
Yeah.
Baylor's a very wealthy institution.
Waco, Texas has got some money.
Yeah. I don't think it's that. I look at him now as Scott Drew is one of those coaches that will forever be, and this is almost sacrilege to say where we're from, he's in that Roy Williams level at Baylor.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be the coach that is synonymous with Baylor for probably the rest of time.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what he cemented last night. That's how big this was. This is a guy that took your program from the depths of the death penalty. They did everything short of shut the program down.
Yeah.
And less than 20 years later, you're the national champions in basketball.
Right.
With 2 former Big South Freshmen of the Year as the 7-man core of your team.
Right.
I mean, think about what I just said. They pulled a guy from Presbyterian and a guy from UNC Asheville. And that was two of the 7 guys that really made up the base core of this team.
Yeah.
That's a guy that is just meticulously working at all times.
Yeah.
And that leads us into our next topic. The North Carolina Tar Heels have tabbed Hubert Davis to take over for Roy Williams.
Wow.
And I'm going to level with you. When I first heard this, it didn't excite me. And, you know, we talked about the Carolina job previously on this show. And I wasn't excited about Hubert Davis. But the more and more I thought about it, the more I can't believe they would hire anybody else.
Right. I mean, we talked about this in depth. I mean, we went through the whole litany of lists. We started, 1, Brad Stevens, 2, Mark Few. Obviously, Mark Few wasn't getting the call after last night. But then you start to think about this. And you talked about this extremely in depth this morning, even on the show yesterday, the radio show. You talked about how the more and more you thought about this, the more Hubert Davis was the absolute home run hire for them. And it wasn't even really a question. I felt like they had to go through the process of giving Jerry Stackhouse the interview.
That was never happening.
He was never going to get hired. Jared Haas, Wes Miller, Steve Robinson. I think what this allows them to do is to continue to keep it in the family, which I think is important at Carolina. And then they move forward. And I think they keep everybody on the bench. So I think Steve Robinson stays. I think, Sean May. I think Kendall Marshall. I think they all stay. You keep everything in the nucleus. Listen, Hubert Davis is a player that played in the league for a long time. Played for my Knicks. That's what I'm talking about. Hubie's great three-point shooter. He's younger. He's been along this. The big thing that I take about it that a lot of people are talking about, Hubert Davis left a very well-paid, cushy analyst job on television to be an assistant coach at his alma mater.
And he did the grunt work, too. This is a guy that was doing a lot of the hands-on, going to see players recruiting.
Yeah.
He didn't take a cushy job at Carolina. Steve Robinson had the cushy job at Carolina. He had the hands-on on the bench job. Hubert Davis was the guy that was doing a lot of the legwork. Built a lot of relationships within the recruiting footprint of Carolina. And here's something that after this came down yesterday, I started thinking about this. Look at the teams that finished in like the top, we'll say 15.
Okay.
Do you realize how many of them have young coaches?
I guess I haven't thought about it.
Tony Bennett.
Yep.
Young guy.
Yep.
Boynton at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Young guy. Musselman at Arkansas.
Yep.
Older than you think, but still a young guy.
Yep.
Shaka Smart at Texas. Chris Holtman at Ohio State. Nate Oates at Alabama. Juwan Howard at Michigan. Brad Underwood at Illinois.
Yeah.
Every one of the guys I just said is under 55 years old. And you know why I bring that up? Because this is not an old man's game anymore.
Oh, no.
It's not.
You're absolutely
It's not.
right.
And I think it's time that the Carolina fans and the Duke fans and I'll even go Kansas. You need to understand the rigor of this job now doesn't lend itself to a 74-year-old man.
It does not.
Because this is 24/7, 365 recruiting. That's what you have to do. You have to be thinking about this class, the next class, the year after that. What if this guy transfers out? I spent all this time on this kid, and he plays 28 games with me and then transfers out. What do I do?
Right, and I think that is the most important thing, and that's why I talked about earlier with Scott Drew. You're going to find that these older coaches are not going to want to put in this work anymore. It's not that they're not going to want to put in the work.
It's that they can't.
They can't, and it's a different ballgame. Like you said, year after year after year, you need to be recruiting kids that are freshmen in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, they have prep lists for kids that are out 4 years from these schools. And with the transfer portal now, you don't know if this kid's going to leave because he doesn't get enough playing time. A lot of these older coaches also believe in the fact that they don't want to play freshmen. They don't. They don't want to play freshmen unless you're all world. And if you don't play freshmen, those freshmen that come in aren't going to get the playing time, and then they're going to leave. Period.
And that's the Roy Williams rule.
Yeah.
That Roy didn't like playing freshmen, and that's allegedly what Walker Kessler's problem was, that he didn't get playing time. You can't do that anymore. You can't steadfast say, I don't play freshmen anymore. I mean, look at the two teams that played last night. Yes, Baylor was very senior-centric. Gonzaga wasn't. Mm-hmm. Their best player was a freshman.
Absolutely.
And he was an otherworldly freshman that you're going to have for a very small period of time because the NCAA did this to you.
Yeah.
They changed the model. They changed the game on the Mike Krzyzewskis, the Roy Williams, the Jim Boeheims. I'll go back to Jim Calhoun, Bob Knight, on and on down the line.
Right.
They changed the game on these guys midway through it.
Right.
You built your programs this way. You became elite, high-end college basketball coaches. And then we said, oh, yeah, but wait. Yeah. Now we're not going to let high school kids go to the NBA.
Right.
We're going to make them come to school for a year.
Right.
And then they add the G League thing.
Whoa.
And it's just an ever-changing evolution. You know what? And some people get offended by what I'm going to say. You know what 75-year-old people don't do well? New shit.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't. They just don't.
Yeah.
They've been doing it this way forever. This is their way. They're not going to learn new things.
Right.
And I think that Roy is going to be the first of an ultimate changing of the guard where you see Mike Krzyzewski and Jim Boeheim and even Bill Self.
Yeah, which is
who's younger than the rest. But I think a lot of these guys are going to go, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to be on the road 11 months out of the year, recruiting guys, doing all of the things, and they show up and play 25 games and leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether they go to the NBA, they go into the transfer portal. Do you know how many players are in are actively in the transfer portal right now?
I thought I heard close to 2,000, but I heard something different than that. What is it, 1,200?
It's 1,200 right
1,200.
now. There are 1,212 active transfer portal cases right now.
That is insane.
Do you realize that's 79 full teams?
Right.
That's how many players are in the transfer portal right now. And you're asking these coaches to do just otherworldly things. Now, getting back to where this topic actually originated, you know what I see in Hubert Davis? I see a 50-year-old guy that's in really good shape.
Yep.
That seems to be very full of life.
Yep.
That seems to be very energetic. And you know what I noticed yesterday with every picture that came out? He looks really good on camera.
Yeah.
He looks good in the suit. He looks good in the NCAA March Madness shirts with the March on with the Tar Heel logo on it. He looks like a young, energetic guy. And you know what? Here's all I can think about. Juwan Howard is doing things at Michigan that they have really never done before.
Right.
Steve Fisher, okay. Yeah, if you don't know why I don't count that, Google it.
Yeah.
There's a reason those banners don't hang there.
Yeah.
By the way, the line of the tournament was. What was it? I can't remember who it was that said this. Oh, it was Turgeon at Maryland that got into the fight with Juwan Howard and said, don't worry with hanging that banner because your banners come down.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Zinger.
If you're going to troll like that.
Troll hard.
But I look at coaches like that, and that's the future of college basketball. That's what you're going to have to be. You're going to have to embrace this because the name, image, and likeness thing's coming whether we like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, you shit in one hand and want in the other. See which one fills up faster.
Yeah.
Because this is happening. And coaches that are going to embrace that, and I look at Hubert Davis as very much a coach that I believe will adapt to that.
Yeah. I think Hubert Davis is going to adapt to the AAUification of college basketball. I think he's got his hands on the pulse of what's going on, the changing landscape that we're going on. You know, you were talking about a couple of those coaches, the younger coaches. You know what I heard when you said that? A lot of these guys are former players.
Yeah, and they're players that we know.
They're former players. They're at their schools. And I think that has a lot to do with something. We talked about this earlier. How many of these kids' parents are going to look at Hubert Davis and say,
I watched him.
They're
our age. A lot of parents of kids. Yep. A lot of parents of kids that are going into college right now are. You're 10 years older than me?
Yeah.
I'm 34. You're 43.
43. Yep.
There you go. A lot of parents of high school age kids range from my age to his age.
Yep.
And you know what I remember? I remember watching Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
I remember watching Hubert Davis on television in the NBA with the Knicks. He played with the Mavericks.
Yeah.
I remember that. And then I remember watching him as an analyst.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, you know what? This guy really knows his shit.
Yeah.
This guy really knows the game of basketball. And there's something that panders to that.
Yep.
Because half of recruiting is winning the parents.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm overthinking this, But if I'm a parent in my mid-40s and I've got a kid in what is a very weird world with social media, all of the access that you have to these players, I really kind of like the idea of him being coached by a guy that's somewhat closer to my age. As opposed to, and I'm not trying to take a slight here at Roy or Mike Krzyzewski.
Absolutely.
They're the greatest coaches that ever lived. I'm just saying the game has changed. And I think having the Hubert Davis that it's very obvious. And Patrick Holt said we're calling him young. Dude's 50 years old. 50's young as hell in college basketball.
Absolutely.
Leonard Hamilton is 74 years old. Roy Williams was 70. Jim Boeheim's 106.
I know. I mean,
50 is young as hell in college basketball.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying he's one of the youngest coaches, but one of those guys was never getting this job. The youngest coach that had a shot at the Carolina job was Wes Miller.
Wes Miller,
And Tank in the comments, hope you're enjoying your vacation, buddy. Trying to keep your seat warm.
We miss you already, big guy.
It's a little weird with the whole shift. I'm used to being over there. And I can't see myself because my camera is away from me. He said it in the comments, 50's the new 30. 20 plus years of the school is a long time. I mean, really, go back to the rankings list. How many of the coaches that I just said have been at jobs for a real long time? In the top 10, I'll tell you, Musselman's been in Arkansas for an hour. Shaka Smart was at Texas for about an hour. Iowa's had their coach for a while. Holtman at Ohio State's pretty new. Nate Oates is new. Juwan Howard's new. Brad Underwood's new. That's 6 of the top 10 have had coaches for less than 5 years. This is the days of the Dean Smiths and the Roy Williams and the Mike Krzyzewskis that coach these teams for 40 years. That shit's over.
It's over.
It's over. That doesn't work in the social media age. It just doesn't. And you're going to lose a lot of these guys in the coming years, and it's going to be very sad. And then you're going to see a lot of turn. And you know, Adam Black. God bless you for that comment because you led me right into exactly what I was getting ready to say. He said, "Who takes over for K when he retires?" You know what the Hubert Davis hire told me? It's probably going to be like John Shire.
Chris Collins.
Nope.
None of that.
Chris Collins has been a failure somewhere else.
That's true. I'm
telling you right now.
We're starting to go in that way of, hey, and that was the thing with Hubert. I think that's something that was overlooked. He hasn't been somewhere and failed yet. But he's been around, and Tank said this early, this guy has lived and breathed Carolina basketball for the longest time. And I think that's something that's super duper important, especially for a blue blood. I mean, we talked about this. North Carolina head coach basketball is the premier job in sports.
It's the premier job in college. In college basketball, certainly. I mean, it's Alabama football, it's New York Yankees in baseball, it's the LA Lakers. That's the level of job that we're talking about here. And you got to understand, this went to a guy with no coaching experience.
Zero.
Which tells me that really smart guys, the ADs, the Bubba Cunninghams, the smart dudes in college athletics go, we don't have to have the 20-year head coach anymore. You know what we need? We need a young, energetic guy that's willing to hit the recruiting trail and go after this hard and not get discouraged when guys transfer because it's going to happen because that's the name of the game.
And I think that, like, again, I'm looking at Tank saying Bobby Hurley. That's obviously something that's I think is in the works. He's also been in a couple different programs. He hasn't really, look at this year. What did he had 2 very high recruits.
2 top 50 recruits.
2 top 50
Christopher
recruits.
was one of the top. I mean, he would have been a lottery pick.
And he didn't even make tournament. So, again, that goes back to he has failed somewhere. When you're in the recruiting thing and you can go to someone and say, hey, why would you go to this guy? He's failed here before.
There's something to be said about not having the ability to negatively recruit out a guy. I mean, all right, so Hubert Davis, what are you going to say at him? What are you going to say? Oh, he doesn't know the game? Well, he played in the NBA for 11 freaking years. He's been an analyst for ESPN for years. He sat at Roy Williams' right hand for 9 years. So you're going to tell me he doesn't know the game? Bullshit. He hasn't lost anywhere. There's nothing to negatively recruited him with.
No. I mean, Hubert Davis, the more we talked about it, and God, if you listened to you guys' show yesterday on ESPN Radio, you even said it. This is the home run hire, and it shouldn't have even been questioned. The more we thought about it, it was crazy that there was even a question that was going to be anything other than Hubert Davis. This guy is going to, I honestly believe, barring some catastrophe, that Hubert Davis is going to be this coach for a very, very, very long time.
Wait a minute. Did you just do a plug? Your first day, did you just do a plug?
I did a plug.
We're learning.
Yeah.
We're learning.
Hey, I've been over on that side. I've been watching you guys do this for a while. This has been a good. I'm really excited about this. Anyways, it's really nice. But yeah, I've learned from the best, so to speak. You know what I mean?
The only thing I don't like is that little imitation Tank Spencer has to go.
Yeah, get it out of there.
Well, it's blocking my view of friggin' everything.
Yeah. And
I can't see shit except the back of Helmet Man's head.
It makes you wonder how Tank does this every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird for him because I'm in my chair, which is lower.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's only 5'6".
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got to be staring at the doll man's ass all day.
Yeah. You know, Tank kind of likes that stuff. So.
Oh, you knew we couldn't get through this whole show without me mentioning this. The New York Jets did what I've been telling you they were going to do for weeks and traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers, receiving a 2022 second-round pick, fourth-round pick, and a sixth-round pick in the end of this month's draft. Brian, before I give my opinions on this,
yes,
what were your thoughts in the Sam Darnold move to Charlotte?
Okay, so first and foremost, they didn't get the number one pick that they wanted to get for Sam Darnold. I don't think that, but the way I look at this is they got a sixth-round pick this year, a second and a fourth. They have 11 picks in the next 2 years in the top 100.
Which is insane.
I don't know that they're going to have pick 11 guys. You're adding a lot of rookie talent to your team if you're doing it that way. Mm-hmm. I think what they're going to be able to do is there's not a guy that they're going to want that they don't get. They're going to be able to trade those picks, move up to get guys that they absolutely want. I think Joe Douglas knows what he's doing, and I believe this is where you're going to see him really excel. Okay, got to talk about Zach Wilson, going to be the starter of the quarterback for sure.
100%. And I heard Bart Scott talking about, the Jets could bring in Nick Foles to start for the first six. Shut up. That's not how this works. Mm-hmm. You don't trade a guy like Sam Darnold with the intention of starting Nick Foles. Yeah. Zach Wilson will be the starter of the New York Jets week 1.
Yeah.
Proceed. I did not mean to cut you off.
No, that's quite all right. The Panthers, I think, may have just hit an absolute home run. Here's my thinking. Okay. Sam Darnold, yes, I know he's had 36 interceptions in 35 games. He's played under 3 different coaches. One of the coaches, I believe, is probably the worst coach in the history of sports.
Rich Kotite. No, it's another Jets coach. Yeah. The worst head coach in the history of the NFL is Rich Kotite. Yeah. Adam Gase is a very close second.
Very close second. But here's some things that I want to talk about. There's familiarity with Robbie Anderson. I think that's going to be huge. They played together for 25 games. They had 5 100-yard games. They had 11 touchdowns. I think that helps out. I think Joe Brady with Carolina looks at Sam Darnold and says, I think what we can do with him is going to make him excel. What does Sam Darnold do pretty well? He's a very intelligent guy. I think Joe Brady, he works on the RPOs, those option routes. And I think they have this is by far, 1,000 times better, the best weapons that Sam Darnold has seen ever.
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
And I want you to factor in this Carolina team. Who's the best number 1 receiver he's ever had? It's DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Who's the best number 2 receiver he's ever had? Oh, it's the best former number 1 receiver he'd ever had, Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson, absolutely.
Who's the best running back he's ever had? Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean,
you may add Kyle Pitts to this too.
And that's a part of this. That's the part of this. That's the absolute home run. Is you get a young quarterback, and you keep that first round pick. You're going to be able. I mean, there's a possibility that Penny Sewell falls to him, and that would be absolutely mind-boggling if they were able to get a quarterback of the future and a left tackle of the future. Their offseason has just been through the roof already, I think. That makes them, I think, possibly one of the best offseasons we've seen in the NFL this year.
So I have to look at this from, I got to break this down because I'm a Jets fan, first of all. So allow me to analyze why did they only get a second-round pick next year? They have 6 picks in the top 108 in this draft.
Yeah.
How many rookies do you really plan on playing a role this year? Mm-hmm. Because more than 5 gets risky. You have 6 picks in the top 108 that are going to play roles this year. I promise you that. Joe Douglas has said he is going to build this team through the draft, and it's what he's doing. Now you have 6 picks in the top 100 next year. As Brian stated, that allows you, if you fall in love with a guy next year and you think this is the missing piece, you can go get him.
Yep.
There is nothing that will stop you from going to get him because you have the ammo to go do whatever you want to do. Now, do I think they got a fair value for Sam Darnold? Yes, I do. If you add up what the picks, if you go by the trade value chart and you add all these picks together, you basically got a late first-round pick next year for Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
That's what you got. And that's what I've long said was going to be the value.
Yeah.
You know, I got into I had some shots thrown at me on Twitter yesterday because I said that it's more likely Carolina would have to give up 8 than get Sam Darnold for a 4. Well, I wasn't wrong about that.
Right.
You still had to give up a premier asset in a second-round pick. That, by the way, there's no guarantee that thing's not in the top 45.
Right.
If you told me that Carolina had one more year before they were good, would you be shocked? With that defense as young as it is, would you be shocked if they missed the playoffs next year?
No. Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
And this could still be a top 45 pick, so I think the Jets did fine.
Yeah.
Now, from the Carolina point of view, Carolina hit an absolute fucking home run.
Knocked it out of the park.
And they did what the Chicago Bears and the Denver Broncos should have done, and they were too big of cowards to do it.
Yep.
More the Bears than the Broncos. Because I understand the value in not giving up more draft capital when you have a second-round pick invested in a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold is markedly better than Andy Dalton, fact or fiction?
Absolute fact, no doubt.
I think it's a no doubt.
No
fact.
doubt.
The thing of it is that Darnold may take some time. It's going to take some time for him to learn this offense. He's never run an offense like this.
Right.
And you know what? You know what I value Sam Darnold to be? A very big doppelganger of Joe Burrow.
Wow. Yeah.
Because he's mobile. He's more mobile than you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's bigger than you think. The biggest knock on him is accuracy because sometimes his feet get a little happy and he gets off balance and he's not overly accurate. You know what tends to fix that? Keeping defenses off balance.
Right.
I love him in this Carolina offense. I can't wait to cover him in this Carolina offense. I sent a message on Twitter last night basically saying that exact same thing. I'm very much looking forward to meeting the Lego Firemen in Charlotte.
Absolutely.
And I think this is one of those days as a Panthers fan. I think you'll look back on and go, that was a good day.
Yeah.
That was a good day that led to a lot of good things in the history of this franchise.
Right.
And now at 8, the one thing I will say is from now on, if we're going to make trades that involve quarterbacks, could we do it before I do a mock draft, not as I'm recording it, and I have to just delete it and set it on fire and throw it away.
I mean, this guy did an entire 7-round draft yesterday, and less than 2-3 hours later, a trade happens that completely wrecks it, and you can't even just change a part of that. You got to go with what you got to do, and it's kind of crazy to think about. So with that being said,
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all. I mean, at least, you know what? At least it didn't involve a pick in the top, 8.
Right.
That means that I had 7 picks that mean shit.
yeah.
At least, oh wait,
Oh wait, it did.
oh wait.
Oh God. Oh boy. I mean, and here you go, and you know what I find is more about this too, like a little bit of inside track about this too. That's really funny. Is now Atlanta sitting at 4.
They were the maddest team in the NFL.
They are looking at this saying, oh wait,
What do we do?
What are we gonna do now?
We're sitting here with 4, which should be a very valuable commodity because
Right.
it's the highest asset you can get in the draft.
And we know that they want to trade back, and they're not going to be able to do it.
No. We don't know that they want to trade.
Well,
it has been speculated
Yeah.
that they have put out feelers.
Feelers.
Let me tell you a dirty little secret of the draft that I have learned of many years of covering.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how much shit you should believe in April?
Not much.
Nothing. Don't believe shit. If it didn't come from your mother or your child, don't believe it. Because it's all bullshit. Don't be shocked if Atlanta stays at 4 and takes Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't be shocked.
Listen-
Don't be shocked if they stay at 4 and take Penny
Yeah.
Sewell. Don't be shocked if Penny Sewell falls to 12.
Yeah.
I'm hearing all of these things.
that's crazy. And we've talked about this. This is going to be one of the craziest drafts that we've seen because there's so many unknowns still at this point. Here's something that I thought about immediately when Sam Darnold got traded to the Panthers. This makes Teddy Bridgewater expendable. And now we got to talk about where he possibly could go. Now, there's obviously two destinations that are going to be number one on the list. It's going to be Chicago and Denver right away. There is a connection between George Patton and Teddy Bridgewater, the offensive coach at Denver. So I think
George Patton's the GM in Denver.
Yeah, okay, GM in Denver, sorry. So I think there is a familiarity there. I think that it would be a great move for him. I think that gives him the best opportunity to start week one, going through and off. And I still think Teddy Bridgewater is a starting quarterback in this league. I just don't think he fit what they wanted to do here in Charlotte. I just don't think is what they wanted. They kind of threw that out there already. And I think doing this, they could. What do they get for Teddy Bridgewater? A four, five, six?
I would say, and here's the thing. I got a lot of flack for shit I said about the Bears because, they had Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's the best quarterback they could have had. No, he's not. And this is exactly why I said that. Because you could have had Sam Darnold for a 2, a 4, and a 6.
Yep.
And you know what that would have done for Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy? It would have given them plausible deniability. We have a 23-year-old quarterback that had to learn our system. Mm-hmm. We are trending in the right direction. You could have, if not made the playoffs, been the first team out, and you probably could have sold to the fan base and to the ownership, we need another year.
Yep.
Instead, you gave Andy Dalton $10 million as a chips to the table. Our defense is good enough, and Andy Dalton's our guy.
Yep.
And now you're fired.
I don't think, and this is 100%. I think this is true fact. I don't think that Matt Nagy and Pace make it past week 6.
I would be nominally shocked if they did.
Yeah.
I would say, you asked where does Teddy Bridgewater go? I'll be honest with you. Teddy Bridgewater's still been a 68+% completion guy for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You know what that screams to me? Team with a good defense. You know a team that has a really good defense that's in the opposite conference as the Panthers?
Denver Broncos.
Here's the thing that, and I said this to Tank yesterday before, after we were done with the ESPN show. The Broncos are going to have to pay Cortland Sutton after this offseason. Mm-hmm. Do you really believe they pay him with Drew Lock throwing to him?
Not a chance in hell.
I don't either. I don't either. I think they need a quarterback that can get him the ball to see what he can really do, and I think it's going to end up being Teddy Bridgewater.
Right. I mean, listen, Drew Lock was given the opportunity. They loaded up. Like, listen, I know Cortland Sutton was hurt, but they still had Jerry Jeudy. KJ Hamler was a nice surprise.
I like KJ Hamler.
I think he was a really nice surprise. I think. And Drew Lock just couldn't do it. He's not accurate. I think Cortland Sutton coming back, their wide receivers are good. Noah Fant is a fantastic tight end. Their defense is fantastic. I think if you add Teddy Bridgewater to this team, they could possibly be a playoff team right away. I think Teddy still has something left, and I think he's got something left to prove. I think Teddy is just sick and tired of going from team to team and teams just giving up on him. And I think that, you got a team like Denver who could give him this opportunity. And listen, Teddy Bridgewater's not your franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. He's not. But you have a defense that's probably not going to stay intact for more than a couple years. You got this young nucleus of wide receivers that are going to have to get paid. And you have a couple years where you can do that. You're not going to get it in the draft. They could get it in the draft, but I don't think there's somebody in this draft that makes more sense than what Teddy Bridgewater would do.
I do love how listing off Denver's weapons, you just went full Howard Dean.
Yeah.
They have Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant and Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah, for sure.
As you were listing them off, I started hearing Howard Dean in my head.
And I think that it would make sense. I'm excited for the Carolina Panthers.
As well you should be.
Yeah, I think that this is something that we're going to see. The fan base, and I've seen a lot of negativity coming from some of the fan base of Carolina. Say, did you just give up 3 draft picks for Sam Darnold? You gave up 3, a 6, a second, and a 4th for a 23-year-old quarterback that still has an opportunity to be fantastic. You weren't going to get anybody in this draft. That's why. I mean, look at what is he? He's only a year older than Joe Burrow. Not even a year?
Darnold, he's 6 months older than Joe Burrow.
6 months older than Joe Burrow.
He's 23 years old.
And I think you're
and
right.
I got news for you. As a draft analyst, I can tell you the grades. If he was in this draft, he would have gone 2.
Yeah.
If he was a rookie coming into this draft, he would have gone 2. He would have been ahead of Zach Wilson, and he would have gone to the Jets again. That's what you just got as a 23-year-old kid. And I'll be honest with you. Here's something that I've heard talked about, but not as much as it should. Matt Rule knows this kid.
Yeah.
Got to know him around the scene when Matt Rule was considering taking the Jets job. He got to know the kid and really liked him and said, this is a kid that I can win football games with.
Right.
And that should make Panthers fans feel really good that you now have a quarterback. And all right, let's say it doesn't work out. You paid him $25 million for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you move on. You gave up a 2. It didn't work. You draft another guy and you roll on.
Right. And I think that you have to move Bridgewater. There's been some people saying things, well, maybe Bridgewater will stay around, and I think that would be a bad idea. I think
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think.
By the way, I do find it funny that Teddy Bridgewater has now been unseated by Sam Darnold 2 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was the starter with the Jets when they drafted Sam Darnold.
And I think he probably should have started a lot more games with the Jets. He should have before they let Darnold in there and got killed. But here's the thing.
Bridgewater worked fine in that offense with Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
I can tell you anybody in New York loved him. And I think they're going to love him in Denver. George Payton had a role in drafting him in Minnesota. So I could easily see a path to that happening.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to talk about before we get out of here.
Yes, sir.
This is going to have an effect on quarterbacks in this draft.
Uh-huh.
Because let's be really honest. How many teams left do you actually see taking a quarterback? Obviously, we know they're going 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So you got Jacksonville with Lawrence at 1, Wilson at 2 to the Jets, and whoever San Francisco takes at 3, whether you believe it's Mac Jones or you believe like I do that it's Trey Lance.
Yeah, I believe it's Trey Lance as well.
And then what?
And then
you think the Falcons are going to take a quarterback? Because I don't.
The more and more I think about it, I don't think the Falcons are going to take the quarterback. I think they're going to kick the can down the street with Matt Ryan, like we've been talking about.
As they should.
Absolutely. I mean, without that, they're struggling.
So let's play a fun game.
Okay.
This is the teams that pick in order, and I'm getting to a point here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from 4 to 8, you have the Falcons, the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Panthers. I don't see a path that any one of them take a quarterback.
I could see. I don't know. I could see the Lions possibly taking.
They're not going to. They're not going to.
Right.
They're blowing this up with the intention of taking Keaton Slovis or Sam Howell next year. They're not going to take the 4th best quarterback to sit behind Jared Goff.
Right.
They're not going to do it. Doesn't make any sense.
Right. Exactly.
And it's not how Brad Holmes works.
True.
Brad Holmes is blowing this up. You can look at the roster and go, this is a guy that's willfully trying to be bad. Yeah. Because he knows there are 2 franchise quarterbacks in next year's draft, and there might be a 3rd.
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, we talked about this. It's not like Joe Burrow was on the radar before that. It was the end of the year. You know, there's a lot of guys that come up a lot, you know, their senior years or their junior years, they come up, they haven't started yet, they haven't got an idea of what we're seeing. You're right. I don't know what we're going to see here. I'm looking at this list right now. You know, if Denver goes and gets Teddy Bridgewater, Dallas isn't drafting a quarterback. New York's not drafting a quarterback. Philadelphia's not drafting a quarterback. The Chargers aren't drafting a quarterback. The Vikings, number 14. That's where we see now we got, and that's the thing. There's not even going to be any chatter, so nobody's going to even have to move up like they wanted to, which is crazy because now New England can sit there at 15 and instead of moving up, they're going to get Mac Jones, they're going to get Justin Fields. So nobody moves. All this stuff where we talked about people moving and moving and moving, we're not going to see it. It's not going to happen.
He sounded it out before I even had to say it. Here's what happens. The drop-dead spot for the 5th quarterback's New England at 15.
Yep.
I won't be shocked if Minnesota either takes one or tries to move out.
Yep.
And calls teams like Pittsburgh and New Orleans and teams like that need a quarterback that never thought they were going to have the opportunity to get one.
And here's one I'm just looking at right now. The Chicago Bears at number 20.
I don't think they're doing it with a rookie. I don't think ownership would give them the leeway to do it with a rookie. They weren't in on Sam Darnold, who's going to be better than whoever that 5th quarterback is they could go get. I don't think Chicago's doing it.
Do you think?
I don't.
What about the narrative that, hey guys, we got this rookie quarterback. Give me a couple years with that to save their jobs for a couple years. Does that makes a little bit of sense to me? Nope, not at all.
Ownership's not going to let them hemorrhage the future to try to save their asses.
Right.
They've made that very clear.
Oh yeah.
Now the thing I don't understand is why did you not just fire them?
Yeah.
If this is how you feel about them, as opposed to leaving your franchise in neutral,
yeah.
You've neutered yourself. You should have just let them go and moved on. But you didn't do that.
And it's crazy because you now look at this, and after the New England Patriots, Cardinals not drafting the quarterback, Raiders probably not drafting the quarterback, Dolphins definitely not, Washington, Chicago, Indianapolis, nope. Tennessee.
I'm going to tell you something.
Oh boy!
And I'm saying this solely because I've heard it. Okay. You do with it what you will. Don't be shocked if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do it.
Wow.
Don't be shocked if the Buccaneers find a way to procure one of these quarterbacks.
And
I've heard it for weeks. I thought it was bullshit, and I didn't think there was any possible way.
Oh my God.
Just think about it. And here's the rationale. Here's how it was explained to me. I'm sure Tank's going to be in the comments going, we would never do that. Okay, here's the rationale. You have kicked this can down the road. You know you're only going to get 2 more years out of Tom Brady.
Yeah.
That's where it is. He can say he wants to play until he's 97 years old.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
One of the thoughts would be you have a rookie quarterback when everything goes to hell in a handbasket with Brady, and it's somebody that's been around Brady and somebody that's been in the winning culture. And there's a thought to that. And I'll be honest with you, I've heard this for multiple weeks. I just thought there's no fucking way. We're all talking about 5 quarterbacks going in the top 8. They're not trading in the top 8. Well, now that I'm looking at it, if one could fall to 14.
Right.
Okay.
And you don't have...
Now, I've seen a team do that. It was the Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
I've seen that. And now I'm looking at it going, son of a bitch, this is the path to them remaining good, which I don't want them to do, because I don't want to listen to tons of fun for another 15 years about how good his fucking team is.
And what this screams to me and what it possibly could mean, and it would be the best Mac Jones going to Tampa Bay, sitting behind Tom Brady and learning the offense. He is, and he could be, listen, you look at Mac Jones and he does a lot of things really well. He's not very mobile. What's Tom Brady? Not very mobile. He's extremely accurate, and he does things really, really well, and he's a really smart kid. This would be absolutely crazy to sit behind the greatest quarterback of all time, learn from the greatest quarterback of all time. I think Tom Brady would embrace that, and I would think he would say, you know what? I know I'm going to be gone in a couple years. I will teach this kid everything.
And here's the thing, and we got to get out of here, but I want to use this reference as how it was said to me. In depressed times, what do rich people do? They buy assets for less than they're worth with the intention of parlaying them later.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's the richest guy on the block. The quarterback market is depressed because there's only a handful of teams that aren't committed one way or the other.
Right.
There's 5 starting level quarterbacks in this draft. Mm-hmm. I have second round grades on 2 of them. I'm a much stricter grader than to me. If you're not a franchise quarterback, you're not a first round quarterback.
Right.
However, there's still 5 of the top 40 players in this draft.
Right.
Which means they're gonna go somewhere.
Right.
Don't be shocked if one of the teams that's the richest guy on the block looks at everything and says, we're going to go buy that house while nobody else can buy it and sell it. Either sell it or live in it later.
Absolutely.
None of that would shock me.
Nothing would shock me in this draft, and I can't wait for it.
No, I can't either. Everybody make sure to hit the little thumb underneath this. Make sure you click the beer in the bottom right-hand corner for the to subscribe to the channel.
Absolutely.
Brian, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun today.
We will be here live tomorrow morning, by the way, since the Panthers and the Jets decided to screw me and make me redo a mock draft. Brian and I will be back live tomorrow morning right here from the Wicked Weed Studios. Wicked Weed Brewing. Drink different.